The next topic that I want to dive into is this idea of collaborative vision. Uh, and I was thinking about this, and actually just this morning was reading Hebrews 12 and 13, and I love these two verses, and I hope just listen to them in the sense of collaborative vision and collaborative working together. Just own this. Just read them there with me. Hebrews 12, 1 and 2. Therefore, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. I read some other verses, and there are some great verses where Paul talks about him running individually. But then I was thinking, collaborative. The author of Hebrews, and we can discuss that at some point if you'd like to try to discuss that. But the author of Hebrews did such an outstanding job of just this collaborative language. And one of the things that I think that we're going to pull out a little bit later on is this use of language and how it plays into this. So let us throw off. Let us run together. Let's fix our eyes. And it's so important that we grasp that as we begin to talk about this. So as we're talking about collaborative vision and shared vision, I started thinking, what really makes it different than your organization, or why is this difficult in relationship to what you experience in your organizations, to what you get to do on a daily basis? And I came up with this. See, you're being asked to own something and to present something that is in addition to your organization. See, none of us are full-time in this. None of us exclusively get to work on the network or partnership, and if you do, that's an amazing benefit, and run with it and hold on to it. But so many of us have different visions, and so this idea of a collaborative or shared vision on one level individually for us is I have to own both my organization's vision and I have to own this collaborative vision of the network or partnership. That's challenging. The second is that as we go through this idea of collaborative vision, this idea of everyone coming together around this, in a way, unlike your organization, this one has to be held in such a way that it's open-handed and that it truly is shared. And that's challenging. That's hard. And we'll talk about some of the struggles with that. So we are assuming that you have a vision statement. Everyone that's on the call, your organization or your network or partnership, you have a vision statement. I've read them, and they're good. So I just want to pull us back. What is a good vision statement as far as a collaborative, shared vision statement? What does it have? There are 4 aspects. Is it missional? Is it truly God focused? Me personally, do I connect to it? Do I believe in what that statement is, and are others able to believe in that wholeheartedly so much that they're willing to contribute of themselves in such a way to do that? Is it communal? And this, I think, is the most important thing, whether it's a network or partnership, doesn't matter. Is it too big for any of us to accomplish? And man, we want to get rid of sex trafficking in the world. That's huge. Okay, and so many of your vision statements are almost at that magnitude level, or even greater than that, and that's so challenging, and that has the magnetic appeal of saying, wow, my organization believes in that, but yeah, how do we do that? And this gives you that opportunity. And C, is it truly practical? And I think the balance between those last two is sometimes challenging, and is it truly doable if we come together? If we really are open-handed, if we share our resources, if we do that, is it really going to work out for us? And here's the main takeaway that I want you to listen or hear from this section. That's simply communication is key. And so let's talk through it real quick. How often do we need to be sharing vision? And the answer is frequently, and that's not going to surprise anyone. But remember this, and you know this in your head, but I want you to remember this, and I want you to be reminded of this again today. No one owns the vision of your network or partnership as strongly as you do. They don't get it. They don't own it the same way. They haven't lived in it the way that you have. And so it's so important that you restate it and restate it again and keep coming back to it. Remind them of its anchoring and its driving power, both of those. It's going to hold you to the core of who you are. It's going to hold you to the kingdom purposes, but it's also going to move you forward to action. If it's a great vision statement, it has to be able to do both of those. So how does this have to happen? Well, it needs to happen consistently, powerfully, using we language. I mentioned this before. This idea of inclusive language is so important here. When we're talking about vision, it's key that we begin to transfer our language that we're using we. I've heard certain facilitation team members, as they're even talking about the facilitation team, use they language, they or their, or just talk about it as if it's the other. Here's what you have to remember. We're all volunteers. We're all going above and beyond. And so when we begin to use that we language, when we're talking about the vision, there will be greater ownership. When you have new people that are coming in, even just testing the waters, begin to use we language around them and see the effect that it has on them. With listening ears, and what do I mean by this with shared vision? One of the things with shared vision is that God is going to challenge you through the people that He brings, whether it be to your consultation, whether it be to your facilitation team meetings. So are you listening for new ways that God is going to challenge you, either through the communication of how you actually speak through it, or potentially even in ways that they're going to shape or define what that vision is in a new way? Any vision that becomes simply an anchor, that simply becomes we're holding here, isn't what we're looking for, and certainly not in a shared collaborative effort, because the world is a changing place. In organizational change methodology and in the theories of organizational change, one of the most popular and one of the most difficult to understand is the complexity theory, which is simply stating that every action will alter a little bit of something else. And so in your networks and partnerships, play that out for a second. That means that every person that comes in will alter, will shift, will change, and have an impact even on things as much as your vision. And so that's an important thing to keep in mind. So practically speaking, what does this actually mean? Well, it means that are we communicating this vision in our emails? Are we communicating it at the beginning of facilitation team meetings? See, again, we assume, well, we're all on the facilitation team. We all get that. And yet we've all heard examples of the high-powered execs in the office that come in and in their weekly staff meeting, they start by restating the vision of the company. Why? Why would you spend time doing that? Again, it's to lay the foundation and to remember what the driving force is. It's so easy to become reactionary, to become task-driven, and setting the vision again gives us this opportunity, especially because people are volunteering, because they are giving of their extra time that they don't have, and we all know that, right? You're all doing this, even the Circles program, which I'm so grateful for, but I know you're doing this in the 60-hour-a-week plus, and you're just adding to what you're already doing. And so it's so important that we lay the foundation each and every time of why we're doing this. In consultations, is it clearly stated? Are we setting both the expectations of the network or partnership, or are we also looking at this idea of how we're then going to do it, how we're actually setting the vision, what it is? The last two or the last three are really important. In our newsletters, through what we're communicating, one of the important things that I want you to realize is that vision is most often clearly understood through stories and through examples. If you want people to grasp your vision, get away from using words and get to where you're using stories and get to where you're using people as examples, because people connect to that. And that's not just an orality principle, as I've been learning more about, and we have Tim. If you guys haven't had a chance to meet Tim Brown yet, I hope you get a chance to spend some time with him. But I want you to think through this idea of storytelling, this idea of relating it back in a real way. How can we effectively communicate our vision in new areas, in new ways, rather than simply going with a mission statement, with a vision statement? A vision statement carries power, and we all need to have them, but as we're learning to communicate them powerfully, get away from using your vision statement and get to using an example, or get to never using your statement without attaching an example. That'll challenge you, but it'll also allow other people to get a mental image of what you're talking about. Now, this idea of reevaluating your vision. How often we need to do this? A lot of you, it happens when you get together annually for your consultation, you go back over it, or your facilitation team, or sometimes when you redo a strategic plan, you want to make sure that it's relevant. What do you need to pay attention to as you're doing that? Think of this. Who has God brought to be part of the organization? Who are the people that are there? Who has God brought alongside? Because here's the thing. God's plan is fulfilled through relationships. God's plan actually is relationships. Did you catch that? It's not just that his plan is fulfilled through relationships, but God's plan is relationships. And if that's true, then we need to really pay attention to who are the players, who are the people that God has brought. What new developments have taken place in our area of focus? I think this is a lot of your networks and partnerships do a really great job of this, but discussing, well, what changes are happening, who's learning or who's new on the scene, what can we learn from them, and this is an important thing even as you're discussing your vision. And what indicators of future trends have you identified? This is a tough one, but don't overlook it. As we look to the future, note that so many of your vision statements have a prophetic voice to them. They have a calling out and a we need to do something about this. And so as you're looking at moving forward, keep that in mind. Where do we see the next thing coming? And what is happening there? I wanted to share this with you because I think this is a really important thing and something that that we've discussed here in our office, that I've discussed with some of you before. But there's a healthy tension in any shared vision, and the tension is this: God gave us a vision, period, and we're going to hold on to it. We're going to grasp. We're going to keep that, and yet, in a shared vision, God provided unique people that are speaking into the vision, and even that'll change it a little bit. That's a really healthy tension. And I hope there are people on your facilitation team that if I had to say, where do you fall on this? Are you holding on tightly to what you already have, or are you paying attention to every person that walks through the door of your meeting, or that responds to an email, or that engages? What is that? Would you say that you have people that own both sides of that? And I hope you do. I hope that your network facilitation team or your partnership facilitation team isn't all on one side or all on the other, but that you have this healthy tension. And it's important to realize that tension truly is a valuable and needed piece of this shared vision idea. So what does this mean in practice? It means that I want you to try to do a couple of different things, and actually I want to give you just a second to think through this. Can you draw your vision? Literally, can there be an image that goes along with it? And are you willing to build a series of examples that highlight your vision that you can then use? And the third one, can you integrate your vision into your next 5 communications? how can you do that? How can you intentionally, whether it be with other facilitation team members, whether it be a newsletter, whether it be a phone call, whether it be a working group meeting, how can you intentionally integrate that in? Make sure that you're doing that and that you're intentional towards that.